Hello, everybody. I had to go full genuine on this one. Ride the pony. This took, it was important that I put the right face on this one. I got to level set. I don't have any evidence. I don't have any information because I don't go to Telescam. So this is ex parte information, but I'm pretty confident based on who said what, that it's pretty true, and it doesn't surprise me, but it surprises me. It doesn't, but it does. You're like, that's confusing. Let me explain what I'm saying so you can understand what's going on. So a user responded, and of course I mentioned I've been trying to go back and forth with these jokers on getting signed up to make a deal so I can help them. And I've said multiple times, it's designed to help the project move it forward. This reminds me of Shirio Inu. Shirio Inu has similar issues in their project, and I tried to tell them, I want to help you. Your project is failing. I think I know why, and I can help you. And instead what they do, and this is what the Libero team apparently was doing as well, what they do is they take it as, well, let's help you understand what we're doing. Once you understand what we're doing, then it'll be okay. And so then they'll invite you to look at a thing, or they'll invite you to Telescam, or they'll invite you all this to try to persuade you, encourage you. You've heard me say the word persuade before. I attributed it to Car Salesman 2.0 with the lock pay. And I've said before, I think this is just crypto, the bubble. These crypto projects, these devs, all they do is they have it in their mind that they're going to just persuade you, tell you, this is what we're doing. They don't want to fix it when they don't understand. You're looking at your graph is crap, and they don't seem to correlate. Your graph is crap for a reason. We can fix it, but you're gonna have to come off what you're doing and make some changes. They don't want to hear from anybody in the community. I could go down the list of multiple ones that do the same thing. Shinja, Mononoke, Crypto Cowboy Token, EarnHub, Satama, Shib, now Libero, Seifu, Titano. They're all doing the same thing. And I don't know if there's just some consultant or somebody telling them, just do this and don't worry about what people say. People don't matter, whatever. And hopefully if you listen to me for a period of time, you've heard me say, the investors are their boss, period. They answer to you, not the other way around. And for whatever reason, projects get in this groove where they're not understanding how that should work. What should happen is you should listen to the voice of the investors when they're telling you they don't like what they see and you should course correct. Instead, it's, well, they just don't understand. You'll understand. It'll all work out. Or my personal favorite, they'll use the bear period as an excuse and say, well, everything's down. When the truth is, not everything's down. There are projects that are slightly down, but there's none that are crapping except for these ones that take this arrogant approach and they don't understand. There's a difference in slight down, right? Everrise. Everrise is slightly down. It didn't crap. It's slightly down. There's a reason for that. Libero is now at the point I can definitively say it's crapped because it's now below. It actually took another significant dump ever recently to where it dropped almost, 11% in the past 24 hours. This is the core token of the Libero ecosystem. It's en route to gaining back another zero. It's so far below the pre-sale price, it might as well be so-called monopoly money at this point. And arguably sells, if you look here, there's crap tons of sells, and that's a driving force. If you look at the timestamps, this is midnight, 2 a.m., 6 a.m. This is coming from the international crowd almost every time. This is the overnights. This is international. We're seeing that there's this sell-off happening on the Libero token. If I jump then over to Libera, I would argue that the devs are going to say, well, Libera is doing pretty good right now. We got some good traction upward. It's up to 135. The problem is that it used to be at almost 150. And even before that, it was even higher than that, $1.80. And even before that, it's higher than that, $2.75. It's actually trending down, sharply down. Libera has roughly 26,000 in volume over the past 24 hours. Libero, I want to say, was somewhere in the neighborhood around that, if not a little bit lower. Current count, 70,000 in the last 24 hours. Mind you, this is a project that had millions in volume at one point in its lifespan and now is at an all-time fractional low, trending ever lower as it goes forward. I can't tell you definitively when I see the overnight crowd, why the overnight crowd specifically is dumping as much as they are. All I can tell you is it's certainly coming from overnight sells and sell pressure, strong sell pressure. Some of these are repeated sells. This one's a repeated sell. 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 There's repeated sells in here, and there's multiple of these wallets. I can't tell you who owns these wallets. I don't think that they're associated with the project specifically. We can no longer buy off the excuse, again, that everything is crapped because, again, if I look at Everrise, which is slightly down in comparison, just to put in perspective of what I would expect of a project right around this time, Everrise is only down 1% over the past 24 hours and only roughly shortly under 2% over the past week. This is a steady decline that I see on Everrise. Everrise's peak was only about, so it's up to 2 zeros and 1. Right now it's 3 zeros and 5. So it's not that far off from the peak, and this is V3. What am I saying? I'm saying that Libero has now officially crapped. And I want to put in perspective why I decided to do a coverage today, given that I'm seeing that it's crapped. A user on YouTube brought something to attention. I don't go into Telescam, so I cannot vet what was said. However, based on what the user said, it doesn't surprise me, and I'm not questioning what they're saying as to be the truth. What I don't know is whether it came from an admin or it came from a dev. I don't think it matters. What really matters is what was said, if this was said, and was said in this fashion. And I'm going to debunk some of these narratives because I think it's important people understand why Libero, the token, is in the state that it's in, and it's never going to recover at this point. And you're going to hear me say more definitive statements than I've said in the past, based on the back and forth I had with this Terra person, and based on this statement, if said as said in the Telescam. Quote, the team, this is Ming, the team will never focus on the initial projects. They keep emphasizing that the new projects will help the initial Libero, but as an investor, we cannot see the connection. Well, I'm in the Telegram. The dev said that CTR, Crypto Talk Radio, found at cryptotalkradio.net, is not good enough to understand what they're doing. Basically asked us not to follow CTR anymore. I found they're arrogant and rude. I want to break this down into chunks if I can, so I can allay some of these things, because I'm assuming this came from Leo Dev. Leo Dev is the one that's mostly on the AMAs and is the dev behind the project. I'm assuming this. I don't know that this was Crypto Addict. Maybe it was. I don't know that answer. Maybe it was this Terra. I don't know that answer. I don't go to Telescam. If people go to Telescam, you can probably scroll and find whatever history, or it came from DM. I think it came in the open chat because it sounds like they said it openly. Don't have that answer. Whether it was Crypto Addict, Terra, or Leo Dev, one of them probably said this statement that apparently we're not good enough to understand what they're doing. Let's put this in perspective. If you look at their chart right now, and this chart is over the past 24 hours, is it fair to say that this has crapped? Is it fair to say that it's down? Is it fair to say it's trending downward? Is it fair to say that whatever they're doing isn't helping Libero? These are all statements that I've made over time. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, why does the graph seem to correlate what it is that I said to be the truth, which is what you're doing isn't making a damn bit of difference to the help of Libero? The long stance that they've made is that what they're doing is going to help Libero. If it's true that what you're doing is going to help Libero, then why hasn't it worked yet? And if we're saying that, oh, at some point it'll work itself out, and at some point it'll fix, and at some point it'll go back up positive, then why is it that you're not able to get Libera on exchanges? Why is it that Lelbank still hasn't launched? Why is it that Bitmart hasn't launched? Why is it that you're not seeing any sort of difference? And the only thing you can bank on right now is Libera Miner and giving money away for whales that dump a bunch of money into the liquidity pools. If you're saying that the liquidity pool is going to help Libero at some point, I question why you think that a Libera liquidity pool is going to help Libero when there's no volume on Libera to support the burns that would help Libero. If you look at Libera right now, I just showed you the volume on Libera is at an all-time low and currently trending down. Right now, it's only 26,000. That's actually lower than Libero. Why does it make sense to anybody who has common sense that adding liquidity pool to a project where there is no volume is going to actually help this other token that has directly nothing to do with that liquidity pool? Because it doesn't. And by the way, you launched Libera Bank ostensibly to trigger burns on Libero, yet you decrease the benefits on Libera Bank. Why would you do that if you wanted people to actually incite these burns? You don't. What you want is you want them to put more money into Libera. If you're putting more money into Libera, that means you care about Libera. That's fine. Just say that as your strategy. We don't give a damn about Libero anymore. We only care about Libera. You guys that went in Libero, you're in the bank, you're locked, there's nothing you can do, and it is what it is. Just say that to people so they know. Then those people, that 100, now 90-something thousand people, because you lost almost 60,000 holders because of this fiasco, this 90-something thousand still left in the project will go and tell everybody else, and it'll spread like wildfire across social media that you don't care about the Libero token anymore, and it should be avoided at all costs. And oh, by the way, if you invest in Libera, it has a strong probability of being abandoned, just like Libero. And by the way, just like Epic Hero, and by the way, just like the Thunder tokens, now we see that same risk happening again, which, if you go back to my past videos, I said was a strong risk of happening here, which is you're creating this sprawl where it seems like you're just jumping from project to project and not taking care of the people in the past. So let's just be clear here. I'd like the community to tell me straight up, I want the smoke. If you look at the graph, does this look like a graph of a project that knows what it's doing? Does this look like a graph where the Libera is actually having a positive effect on the rest of the ecosystem? Does this look like a graph where there's enough volume to actually make a damn bit of difference on the Libero holders? I would argue that the graph tells you that no, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference. And I think we all knew this. I think the community knows that. You know who doesn't know it? The Libero devs, because they're too stuck in the crypto bubble to understand this is a past strategy of theirs. I broke down from the Cerberus and the Garuda and the Epic Hero and the Thunder ADA and Thunder Cake and Thunder BNB and everything else. This is a risk this happens again, which is when they see that something isn't working the way they want to, they spin up another token. I sent questions back to them saying, we should understand what you're going to do with these other tokens that apparently you're gutting. That was in my Libera Bank video. Go back and check it. I said, it looks like you're gutting the rest of the tokens of the ecosystem. What are you going to do about it? When I send the coverage and I say, I want to understand why the dev doesn't want to go on video. Why don't you want that smoke? Multiple people in the Seifu community and the Titano community openly said that's the number one reason I don't want to invest in Libero, because this guy or gal or whatever, it says Leo, so I'm assuming it's a guy, doesn't want to put himself out there, doesn't want to show his face. Why doesn't he want to show his face? The freaking car salesman on Seifu showed his face, even though he's a scummy guy. He showed his face. Why can't the Libero one? I'm hearing this multiple times. This is not something that's unusual. You can search it yourself. You can go to their communities and hear directly from those people. They don't trust the Libero dev because he doesn't want to show himself. Okay, I said, I want to know why you don't want to show yourself. If there's a legal reason why you can't because there's something in your country, let's talk about it and I'll help you communicate what that is. If you just don't want to answer that question, that's scummy, brother. Seriously, if it's something with you having a criminal record like the cult leader, even the cult leader exposed himself, regardless of his criminal record, at this point, you really don't have any excuse. You don't have anything to fall back on when you say you don't want to show yourself. You don't even admit you don't want to. You're just refusing to do it. When you got people that have criminal records like a Willie D and Russ cult leader and all these other ones, or straight up past rug pullers like this the car salesman over here, you got these people and they're putting their face out there and you can't, but you're saying that you're legit and you're okay because Thorium KYC'd you, but we can't look at the Thorium KYC results, and you don't understand that that makes people a little bit skittish. I don't know what to tell you beyond people can see your graph, brother. People can see your graph, that your graph isn't performing the way that you said it was going to perform. When I did the first coverage, I said, Libero had my attention because at the time, it's doing what they told me. which was you're going to make money. You still make money off stuff. You still make passives. However, the amount of passives have gone down. Let's talk about that, shall we? Let me go to the Libero financial site. And I noticed they started making changes, and those changes are part of what I'm going to cover. Because of this fiasco, they put up on the Dow, right? And the Dow is where they put a vote and says, we want to change this, and here's what we want to change, and here's what we want to make changes to. Well, first of all, the price of Libero tanked over 11% over the past 24 hours. So something happened where people started to get less sentiment triggered in, and they sold off the thing. They don't seem to want to fix that. That's fine. But I also said that Libero is down from its peak. It used to be at $2.70. It's down to $1.35. Meanwhile, the index to wrap continues to go up, which means there's no incentive for you to wrap your Libero into Libero, which means there's no benefit for you to take your existing Libero that's losing value and at least put it into something that has increasing value so that you can take advantage of the Libero or Liberator or the Libero miner with your existing supply, meaning they don't want you to do that. They're purposely stopping you from using this supply and at least recouping some of that money in the Libero miner, because you probably would have enough if the price were at parity to put your Libero in Libero miner and recoup some of those losses, because that's the new shiny. They stopped you from doing that. Okay, if it's true that there's nothing wrong, let's assume that their thought is there's nothing wrong, we ain't got to do nothing. I question why you felt the need to go ahead and adjust the APY from the unrealistic 6 figures down to 4,000, because you had to change the emissions, you had to do the sell tax. If there's nothing wrong, why did you have to take any action at all? Why did you have to turn this stuff off? Why did you have to make adjustments? You know why? Because you realize ultimately Libero isn't going to do it for you anymore. You're not going to be able to do anything to fix it, and you're not willing to listen to people trying to help you fix it. So all you could do is say, this is actually the real APY. We could never sustain the unrealistic APY. If it's true that Leicester doesn't know and doesn't understand, you can go back to the very first video I did on Libero Financial, and you'll hear me say, this is probably not a sustainable APY. And at some point, it's going to have to break, and some point it's going to have to change. That was ages ago. It was obvious, right? But as long as it's making you money, you can just ride it as long as it's making you money. It's still making you money. You're just making less money. And the money direction now has gone to Libero, and they want you to buy into Libero. They don't want you to transfer into Libero. What also burned me a little bit, if you notice, they removed the bond completely off the option tree on the left. If you've heard my coverage multiple times, I've said the bond is the key, because the bond does one thing the rest of it doesn't do. The bond encourages you to buy into Libero. They don't want you to buy into Libero. They don't want people to buy into Libero anymore, because there's no other reason you would get rid of the bond when the bond is the best way to do that. The bond supports the liquidity pool. The bond encourages purchases. There's no logical reason you would get rid of it. Remember, their own freaking document said to you that bonds is the future, bond is long-term. If we don't want, short-term liquidity, we should be doing the bond. And that mining is only for short-term. Go back to my previous video where I called out critical issues with the announcement and the Dow, and I said, this is an image from your own garbage Git book showing what you said. You said mining is not sustainable long-term. It's only for short-term liquidity, and it basically creates throwaway wealth. You said that, but now you're going all in on this, and you've gone all in on the Libero miner to the point that you pasted this Libero miner and Liberator Bank all over the different sites now, because you want to encourage people to go there, and then remove the bond secretly without telling people, because you don't want people to buy into Libero anymore. It's clear that that's what's happening. They don't want you to buy into Libero. So then people are wondering, well, what do I do with my existing Libero? If it's in the bank, there's nothing you can do. That was part of the plan, is, okay, we're going to go ahead and create this lock and create this position, and now we have access to these funds, and now we'll go ahead and just go off to the new shiny and do this. But if you want to come along the ride, you can do the Libero miner and do that and do. Instead of creating facilities that would let people use their existing Libero and get on board with Libero miner without dumping more money into a project that they're no longer confident about. And truthfully, nobody's confident anymore in what they're doing, because there were these, it's like we see evidence they're moving to this Libero and Liberator and Libero miner. They would not right say it. They would not right admit it. That's fine. That's up to them. But it's clear that that's what they're doing. They want you to go to Libero. They want you to do the miner. They want you to put the liquidity pool and go all in at this point on Libero. If that's what they want to do, fine. I'll state this. If it's true, let's say it's factually true that I don't know what I'm talking about, Leicester has no idea what it's talking about, I question why my videos are featured on your own damn website, and you've even tweeted people telling them, no, you should check out these videos. He's got it. He knows what he's talking about. We have a contradiction here, people, and that's why I think you got some problems in your house. Not you, community. I'm talking devs, admins. Somebody there, probably Leo Dev, I can't prove it, but probably Leo Dev, is not consistent with somebody in the community. Probably Crypto Addict. I can't prove this. Could be the opposite. Could be Crypto Addict who's saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. I think it's Leo Dev. And I think it's Leo Dev because of the questions I asked. And I'll break down what I asked them because they said, the dev's not coming on video. Send me your email questions and I'll try to get you answers. This is Tara, if you know her from the admins or whatever. Question number one, I wanted to understand why are you not focusing on Libero? Didn't get an answer. I wanted to understand what is your strategy? What are you doing? What are you trying to do? Didn't get an answer. Why does the dev not want to come on video? Because the community is concerned about this. Didn't get an answer. And most importantly, the sites are a nightmare. When are we going to try to fix it? Didn't get an answer. So I don't know what to tell you at this point, other than devs, admins, mods. I don't know who said what. All I can tell you is for the community, it is crystal clear that they are now focused hot and heavy on Libero Miner. That is their go forward direction, as apparent by them putting it all over the site now. They do not really want you to buy Libero at this point, as apparent by them removing the bond. And with Libero Miner, they made changes to the way this is laid out, and which is interesting because I told them the site's nightmare, but they made changes to the way this is laid out to try to optimize this and clean it up and add all this other stuff. They're putting all their energy into this business because this is what they want you to do going forward. They are all in on Libero. They don't care about Libero anymore. Now they've stopped the emissions on Libero. What that means in what you see is that you're going to get less in your rewards if you have it in the bank. Those are going to go down. And when I say the rewards, I'm talking the Libero rewards. The Binance USD looks like it's not affected, but the Libero rewards are going down because of the emissions change. So you're going to get less if it's in the bank. If it's not in the bank, it's still the same rate that it was before, which makes no damn sense. If you wanted to try to get into the wrap, you can do it. The problem is that, again, they don't really want you to. That's why from Libero Financial, you can't just straight do it. And that's why they didn't add it as a compound offer straight off the bank, which would have made logical sense, that you cannot compound straight to Libero. You have to go to one of these garbages and then either zap straight or then go back to Libero Bank and then deposit into this one. But there's no reason to do that because they decreased the rewards on Libero Bank. All roads lead to these two, Liberator Bank, Libero Miner. Mind you, Liberator Bank, they claim 4 and 25 on the rewards. I can guarantee you're not getting that much rewards. I guarantee you. You can do the math yourself. You are not getting 4 and 25 on Liberator Bank. You are not. The only way you're getting any rewards is on Libero Miner. And Libero Miner requires that you go in and claim your rewards every day, and you can't miss the day. If you miss the day, it resets. And then after the 7th day, then you have to do the claim. You have to actually do this in order to get any sort of value out of it now. Summary, Libero Financial, in my mind, and for any other people in the mods, devs, whatever, who are listening to this, you say I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I question that statement because you still have my videos featured on your website. So if I don't know what I'm talking about, you're distributing incorrect information to your various communities. Chances are I know what I'm talking about. You don't like what I'm saying because you're trying to create this narrative and you're moving it forward, and that's fine, but you're afraid to face the smoke about what you're doing. I want to say two things. Some people are saying it's a Ponzi scheme. Let me clarify. This is not a Ponzi scheme by definition, because a Ponzi scheme, if this were a Ponzi scheme, the Libero activity would benefit the Libero. That's a Ponzi, is that you create something new to benefit the original holders. Libero holders aren't being benefited by the Libero. Thus, it's not a Ponzi scheme by definition. There's no benefit. The Libero money might be getting used to support the Libera. I question that's true because you're forced to buy in net new in order to do the Libera miner. If it was truly a Ponzi, there'd be a direct connection, and there isn't. So it's not a definition Ponzi scheme. By definition, it's not by definition a pyramid scheme because there's no direct linkage in the activities downstream, meaning that if it was true pyramid, it means that doing all these Libera things, we would immediately see that Libero starts going up based on that activity. We don't. It doesn't matter what Libera does. Libero doesn't go up. There's no direct connection. Within the miner, you could argue that it's a pyramid because you're compounding directly in the miner, right? You're forced to put money in and compound over the miner. The miner doesn't benefit Liberator Bank. Liberator Bank can't be used to go to the miner. Thus, it's no connection. Thus, it's not a pyramid. So by definition, this is not a Ponzi or a pyramid. The problem is that they're just jumping to shinies. They see a thing and they react and they go to another thing and they react and they go to another thing and they react and go to another thing. This was all the way back to Epic Hero. I said it before. And the Thunder tokens. The Thunder tokens, that was the first time we were starting to see way back that, okay, we're giving rewards in BNB or rewards in Cake or rewards in ADA. Let's create these rewards tokens. That was the first step. And then that started to be old. And then the net new was NFTs, right? Okay, let's create an NFT-based token. And that was Epic Hero. And they spun it up. Then it was yield farming. And that was Multiverse Capital. Let's spin up a token that does that. Then it was, okay, Titano comes out and they release this contract and it's got the unrealistic APY and we could do rebasing and all this. And they just took that and then created their own and said we did it better. The Libera now was, let's get on exchange with what we're doing. But then they saw the baked beans and the elephant money and the EMP money and all these and said, okay, we got to go and create a mining thing. Do you see what I'm saying? This is a clear pattern of just, they see a thing and they just jump on it, 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 create sprawl. That has always been the strategy of the team, is to jump on whatever's popular at the time with no clear strategy forward. The result is that anybody who happened to be in this project here, assuming it doesn't get hacked, you're just stuck in value if it's staked. And in this case, they created the stake and they built it to where you would stake it to 4 years. And if you withdraw prior to that, you lose 90% of it. That might not be a big thing if the value had increased 90%, because then at least you would get back your net input, right? It's nowhere close to that. So anybody right now in Libero is sitting at a loss and will be at a loss for the long haul. Anybody who's buying into Libera is at a loss because it's not appreciating fast enough to offset the sells. Goes back to the graph. No matter what they do, there's these excessive sells that happen because people are dumping out to try to recoup what they've lost because of, again, it all ties back to Libero. Libero has still the majority of holders, over 90,000 holders. It's lost, from my count, over 50 some odd thousand holders. That's not an accident. Come on. The Libero team now, I hate to say this, but it's true. The Libero team now is where Satama is and was. Satama launches. They have these lofty things. It unreasonably pumps. They have the failed Vegas event. They're not listening to investors. They're making mistakes. They're doing all these shinies and they screw it up and then it tanks sentiment and it never recovers. That's where Libero is right now. Will it get out of the hole? I doubt it. I'll say this though. I don't know who on the Libero side made the statement. I don't know if the statement was made as stated. I'm pretty confident based on the user that it's what was said in what was presented. That's fine. I don't care what you feel about it because at the end of the day, I'm a straight shooter in the world of sensitivity. I'm going to say what I feel like saying. Every video has said the same thing. I have never, ever said that I think Libero's legit. I said it was doing what they told me. And at some point, they got to stop going after shinies. And at some point, they got to fix Libero because without Libero, none of the rest of it works. They're free to ignore everything I said. And if they ignore everything I said, I feel bad for anybody getting into Libera and Libera Minor because Libera Minor won't be sustainable long term, not at the volume that they got right now. And if they're banking on the bear period to pass and then all of a sudden everything's going to be magically fine, I don't think they're going to succeed because you still have BNB Miner out there and it's the go-to. It's the core number one. You still got baked beans, even though it crapped. I think there's a loyalty there. There's a community there. There's a support there of the people in the project. Elephant Money is scheduled to recoup. If Elephant Money gets back on track, Elephant Money has, again, an open dev. He's put his video, his face, his LinkedIn out there. He has high credentials, and the hack was significant. So if he's able to rebuild that one and get it back up scratch, he's going to have the confidence of anybody who wants to mine. At that point, you're a follow after. Nobody's going to go to your project because everybody else is doing it better and they're putting their face out there. The Libero team doesn't understand that putting your face out there matters to some people. It matters. For me, it's whatever, because like with car salesman, he puts his face out there, whatever. But I recognize in certain community aspects, there's a value in doing this. And when you don't do it, it comes across sketchy. When they see you jump from project to project to project to project, it comes across sketchy. When you put in excessive locks, it comes across sketchy. When you change the API after the fact because, oh, by the way, you screwed up and forgot some things, that comes across sketchy. And then you have the person who's done the most coverage, which is Leicester, on the projects. And then you acknowledge an email, and I got receipts, that apparently I'm right on spot with what I say and everything is correct and I have a core understanding of Libero and Libera, but then allegedly you say that Leicester all of a sudden doesn't know what he's talking about. That's a little bit sketchy and shady. You are free to have that opinion. I don't frankly care. I'll still state the opinion. And anybody in the community that disagrees with anything I covered as far as the graph behavior that you can see yourself and the behavior of the devs that you can see yourself and the price movement in decline, steep decline. If we all say that, no, it's just a bear period, it'll pass. Let's wait and see. All I can tell you is when I look at other projects, when I see this one's tanked 10% over the past 24 hours and Everrise tanked only 1% or 2%, that tells me something's not quite clicking. And what I'm saying is probably the truth, which is, no, it's not the bear period. Something's wrong with your project. Something's wrong with sentiment. Something's wrong with the people. The people are not happy. And you have a choice. You can choose not to make the people happy and let it crap out. And then we end up in an earn hub situation where eventually the devs give up and move on to the next shiny because this set of devs has followed that pattern before. They've done that before. And I point you to Epic Hero if you don't believe me. Cool. Anyhow, any questions? Because I'm in full on mode. Any questions on that one? And truly, if anybody has anything that contradicts anything I said, please, I want to smoke. Put it in chat. We can chat it out. And while I wait, see if there's any questions, let me just pull up Titano, which has a garbage contract, by the way. Run up on Titano. Who wants to bet that the vast majority of those people came from Libero? Can't prove it, but who wants to bet that's the case? Because Titano has a garbage contract. And regardless, people are still buying back into the thing, even though it has a garbage contract. And Libero is tanking to the tune of 11%, and Titano is up 7% over the past 24 hours. Coincidence? Maybe. I don't buy it. All right, cool. So hopefully that has been helpful and not depressing. I don't want to depress the community. Long Beach says Libero's dead, won't survive the bear market. I don't know that it's dead. I don't know that it's dying, but I don't know that it's dead. I think what's going to happen is that it's going to struggle to get back to wherever it is in the short term. However, it's going to depend on whether they hold the course on this business, because even Multiverse Capital is about to gain back a zero. So all their farming ones are struggling, significantly struggling, and Epic Hero is pretty much at rock bottom. So the question is, do they just spin up another token, like a completely new token, and then Libera gets left behind, or Libera struggles to do anything? Because again, we never solved why Libera didn't end up on LBank or Bitmart. And because the dev apparently doesn't want that smoke, I would hope the community would beat these guys up because I'm not going to Telescam. I refuse. I'm a business. I'm a grown ass man, but I'm a business. More importantly, I'm not going to Telescam. If the dev wants to smoke, he's got to come out of that shell because I don't play that. Just like with all these other ones, that's not going to work. And if he's like got some criminal record or whatever, I would argue that's not an excuse because Russ, the cult leader, has a criminal record. He puts himself out there. Willie D has a criminal record. He put himself out there. Car salesman. He's rug pulled 3 projects. He put himself out there. Like at some point, there's no more excuse to duck that smoke because no matter what, unless he's in some country where it's illegal to do cryptocurrency, and if he is, that would create a red flag. And I think we should open that up to the community and talk about it. Because if you got nothing to lose, people have already dumped out the project. So what do you have to lose? Jeff Capital says, thanks for the coverage. He's in Everrise, Titano. Hope they can get it together. I want to talk about this whole business with Everrise because it ties to a whole token too, but with Libero. Any token that's getting on the Everrise ecosystem at this point is going to be stronger in the long haul. Any one of them. The Libero team has refused to work with any other project outside of their ecosystem and Night Swap and Baby Swap and Buy Swap, the swaps. Other than those, they refuse to work with any other project. I think that's hurting them. And I think the reason that they're not trying to do it is that most of them are going to require that dev show his damn self. I can't prove this, but it wouldn't surprise me that they're going to say, no, you got to come on camera, brother, and we need to see you and talk to you. My request isn't unrealistic. I'm not unique in this regard. It's just that we're dealing with grown-ups. We're not dealing with these kids that they're used to dealing with. So, and then Titano, the big issue I have with them simply is that their contract is crap. So they made promises after they stole the money from that whale, and they said the contract was going to fix it, and they made it worse. I think it's a terrible contract. Arguably, the Titano contract has the same fundamental problems as the hold token contract, which is interesting. Same risk in market moves, same problems. They didn't renounce it. They didn't do anything, and I don't know why that is. Some of these, it's like if you get on EverOwn, then you can protect the contract, but then you have to go to the community to ask for permission to check it out and make changes to the code. That would increase investor confidence in your project because you still have the lock. The community gives you permission to get access to it. The reason these token devs don't want to do that is because of ego. They want that power. They're power trippers. They all of them. If you look at the pattern, Cliff on Shinja, Cult Leader on Satama, all of them. Every last one of them has that same pattern of power trip. I've got the power. I've got your money. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And you're going to see, we're going to make some money together. And the truth is either they rug pull at some point, fail at some point, or never get to true success because of stupid mistakes. All of them follow the same pattern because of that ego issue, that power trip issue, which is unfortunate because why do you want to do that? Why do you want to be that way? See, this nonsense here, this is what inspired me to create the token I'm creating for the triad members, to show them what it's supposed to be, and tying directly from the moment I can to EverOwn and EverLock and EverStake and EverMigrate and use that whole ecosystem to prove to them I don't need to change the contract code. Once it's out, I don't need to touch it. And I don't want to have the liquidity. That I shouldn't have the liquidity. I'm going to lock it straight day one, and you'll be able to see the wallet and prove that, no, he doesn't have access to anything. I don't need it. I want to use it to give it to the triad members. And I'm going to prevent it from being bought and sold because I don't want it to be dumped on. And I'm not going to put crazy mechanics like LockPay. But everybody already knows who I am. You got my channel. You have my site. I'm on all the video platforms. I'm on social media. I'm easy to find. And I'll just show this is what token's supposed to be. Is it designed to make you a millionaire? No, because none of them should. The ones that try to make you an instant millionaire, those are the ones that crap the fastest. But I don't think Libero's dead per se. I think it's not the focus anymore. Because if you look at like Thorium, the token, the main Thorium token, it's not dead. It's declining, but it's not dead, and it's been around for ages. And they don't drop the token. They just stop focusing on it. That's the thing. They'll still have buys and sells and traffic. And remember, Libero, because people were told to put their stuff in Libero Bank, at minimum, you're stuck in the ecosystem if for no other reason than your money is stuck in the bank. So I would still say people should claim the rewards for as long as they pay out. Like Thunder BNB. Thunder BNB, they completely abandoned it, but it still pays rewards. So if people are still in it, they still get rewards out of it. So I can't fault that. They'll still do what they say, but you want to see that you're giving focus to it because it could be so much more. Like Libero could be so much more. Because if you look at the name of the token, Libero, financial freedom. Well, it's not going to do that if you're not focusing on getting it back on where it's supposed to be. And you're going to Libera instead, well, that changes the game now. Because what happens to the Libero people? And that, I think, is harming investor sentiment, and they're getting upset. For everybody that's listening, if you go to Telescam, because I won't, if you go to Telescam and you can prove and verify that indeed this statement was said, that apparently Leicester doesn't know what the hell he's talking about and he doesn't understand, and that people shouldn't follow Crypto Talk Radio because we don't understand the ecosystem. If you can verify that was said, and you can verify who said it, because like I said, it can only be Terra, T-A-R-A, Crypto Addict, or the Leo Dev. It can only be one of these three, I'm assuming, unless there's some other mod or some other dev, but I think it's one of these three. Verify who said that statement and challenge him. Challenge him. Challenge, ask the question, if Leicester and Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what they're talking about, then why the hell are you featuring Leicester's videos on your own damn site? Why'd you tell people to go look at them? So if you're in Telescam, challenge them that. Ask them that question. See what they say. Chris Murillo wants to know, what are your top 5 altcoins in a bear market? I don't recommend altcoins in a bear market because they're altcoins. I recommend core tokens because core tokens will never go anywhere. Or if they do, they're still going to take care of you. Like even Luna, as garbage as that was with Do Rug Pull, largely is taking care of, trying to take care of people. They just did the wrong approach. It's going to be slower. But like the Luna token's still around. It's still there. And the new Luna, shiny, is still getting somewhat. It's just going to take some time, longer than it should have. Tron is up and coming. Tron is one of those unsung heroes. I think I did Tron coverage on the podcast back in October. It was one of my favorite tokens of all time because of just the portability, usability. So the Tron network token, Avalanche's core token, Phantom is declining, but it seems to be able to recover pretty quick. Polygon's having issues, but Bitcoin, I would still say Ethereum is still in the game. And I would tell people to buy dips where they make sense because I think Ethereum is going to rebound at some point when 2.0 comes out. But I would look at the core tokens. I would not look at altcoins in the bear. It doesn't make sense because we know people are buying dips on Bitcoin. I believe that most of the money that we see flowing out of these projects is going to Bitcoin because they know it's going to rebound. They know it's going to go back up. They don't know when. And it's like all hands on deck to go to Bitcoin. That's my theory. Nate's TO says, worst thing, Libero tried to focus on Phantom while it's still new. Libero, Phantom Libero, which is a separate token, which I think is a problem. But now looking at it, I said in my last video, Phantom Libero is the only one in the ecosystem that's actually profitable. Phantom Libero had some interesting levels of growth very recently, which I attribute to the supply. I believe it's because of the supply. Like if you look, Phantom Libero now has almost 16,000 holders. When I looked at this a couple days ago, it had 10,000 holders. So people are jumping over to Phantom Libero. The thing is, if they're selling their Binance Libero to get in this, you're just harming the Binance Libero side. I'm not down on it. I'm in Phantom Libero. I have a little bit in the Phantom Libero bank. It has a heavily constrained supply. It only has 1.5 billion in supply compared to the countless supply over there. It has 1,000, so it's a low volume, but the liquidity is in a really healthy state compared. And you don't, the other thing, right, on the Libero, Libera, every time you do something in Libera, so that's Libera Miner, Liberator, Libero Bank, all of these, right? Every time you do something, whether it's Claim, Compound, Zap, doesn't matter what it is, you get nailed for gas each and every time. If you do the Binance USD Compound, it charges you more to do that Compound button than it would be to claim it and then do a buy straight in on whatever you want and then stake it. It's like 10 cents, 20 cents more expensive. So the way their buttons are built is jacked up. That's that. The Zap doesn't sell anyway. So you're hurting the ecosystem that way. Like everything there that they built, all these buttons and stuff to try to get people to do it, you're getting nailed on gas each and every time. So like I noticed, okay, well, with Libero Bank, okay, I want to claim the rewards and I don't have a significant amount in there, but I don't want to pay 50 cents every single time I'm claiming a thing. I think that's outrageous. It's not crazy amounts of money. It's the principle. I shouldn't be charged every time I do a thing. And they never built a function that would just say auto compound or auto claim where I'm not being nailed for it. On the Phantom Libero side, you never get charged gas to do the same transactions. So you might get charged 1 penny. Every blue moon, it'll like, I think it's compound that charges like a penny. Everything else is zero, free to do the work. So if you wanted to claim compound or anything else, it's free. The problem is that they said that at some point they want to do F Libera, and that's going to jack this one up too. But there are significant more people jumping into Phantom Libero. And its graph, if you notice, doesn't have the same significant level of crap out. It just went down when it initially launched, and they had hype behind it. When people started seeing that there was no bridge and you couldn't get out of it, when the bear period started, then its volume tapered off. This is a volume taper. This isn't excessive dump. They've had a couple periods where people sold for profit. Other than that, this is volume taper. And the volume is low. It's only 1,000. Libero is like 20, 40,000. So the volume is low. The reason the volume is low is because it's the Phantom network. The Phantom network is not widely used. It certainly isn't in the United States. So people don't know about it. And you can't just jump into it off of, Binance.com or something. It takes some steps to get in. They never educated people on how to really use Phantom Libero. They never advertised it. They never really promoted it. It's there. It's a thing. And I don't know that it's a different team or not, because it seems like they've not jacked this one up yet. I don't know if they plan to or whatever. I know they said they're going to do F Libera. If they do F Libera, it's going to screw this one up. I hope they don't. If they leave this one alone, I think this one's fine. I would just tell people don't put it in the bank. Don't lock it in the bank, because if you lock it in the bank, you're going to be stuck just like the Binance side if you do that. And to Jeff Capital, they didn't abandon fully the Thorium token. It's not abandoned because it's basically a source of money. So think of the Thorium token as like an angel investor. It's like a fund. It's just money, right? And so a bunch of people buy the tokens, and it generates this money, and then they use that money to kind of help build and fund and pay people for these new tokens that show up. So the Thorium one is kind of the center of the universe. The thing is, they use some of the Thorium money to support the ecosystem on Libero at points. And they used the Thorium token when they did the pre-sale for Libero. You had to put Thorium in order to get into pre-sale. And that was the reason why it couldn't sell out that fast, because you were required to do either Thorium in the first tiers, Thorium or some of the Thunder ones, or basically because they were trying to reclaim the liquidity off these, which was brilliant. I like that they did it. But they've never done it since, which didn't make any sense because they had an opportunity. Think about it. There are still people holding all these other tokens. They could have been doing campaigns to say, let's just do another run. Give us your Thorium, give us your Thunder, give us your whatever, Epic Hero, and as buy-in, and we'll take that liquidity to help the eco for Libero, and we'll give you some Libero tokens, but we'll do the same thing with stopping the emissions and everything else. They could have tied it all in there. They did it at first. You staked your MVC, you staked your Thorium, and they gave you Libero tokens, and then they stopped doing it. And then again, I think it's because they decided to just heavily focus on Libera Miner, because it feels like this is now all they care about. Well, I did the other video, and it was about 600. They got another whopping 100 users, and those users have only made $300. So roughly about $2.60 per user. Is it really worth that effort? Is it really worth that development time for $300 worth of claim off $25,000 worth of compound? Like, think about it. If you're not in Libera Miner and you're net new and you're not in the crypto bubble, and you see that this is what they're focusing on, and you see that, okay, well, crap, all they made is $300 and there's only 700 people, and the price at the time, because look, the liquidity pool price is 50 cents lower than the net price of the token. Like, it's all jacked up. People in the financial industry outside the bubble look at this and they say something's not right. This is all jacked up. Who's really getting enriched here? Because it ain't the liquidity pool people. I'll tell you who it is. It's the whales, because this is what's enticing people. Just put this much money in there and we'll just go ahead and do you a quick payout of this much thousands of dollars off the liquidity pool. That's who's getting enriched. It's going after that. Well, that's not even a lottery at that point. If that's what people want to do, because people are doing it, that's fine. I don't, and the vast majority wouldn't. But as I said before, do you want 10 people putting $1,000 in there, or 1,000 people putting $50 in there? It's a different mind shift, and they have this mindset that we want the high dollar inputs. But to what end? Are you doing it to help Libero, or are you doing it just to collect money from people? If you're doing it to collect money from people, I said you might as well just create a separate project at that point. Just create another different thing and leave it alone, not tie it to Libero, because that doesn't make any sense. So who knows? I don't know. Oh yeah, and the other thing, this business, this Lamborghini contest, which is supposed to be, now if you look at what this Lamborghini thing says, this is where I think people are going to get pissed off, if I'm reading this right. It says stake in Libero Bank. It doesn't say stake in Libero Minor. It doesn't say stake in Liberator. It says stake in Libero Bank. And then you have this contest that starts in June. Now this could be, it says starting May 10th, but it's really starting in June. It could be that they just have the image all jacked up, but their text straight says stake in Libero Bank, Libero Bank, Libero Bank, in order to get this money. If there are people who are putting in the minor because it's the liquidity pool, assuming it's the same thing, or Liberator Bank, assuming it's the same thing, and they're not eligible to do this, you're going to have a lot of pissed off people. Because when Libero launched, this was the focus. This is, everybody tossed their Libero in here. There's millions in Libero Bank. This money has nothing to do with the minor, has nothing to do with the liquidity pool. So I'm saying over time, this goes back to the questions about, whether from Long Beach about if it's going to survive. The decisions they've made and all these messaging, incorrect messaging and confusing messaging, it's going to bite them over time because of the way they built it, because they're just reacting. They're just jumping to this next shiny instead of a strategy. And it's going to bite them. And when they piss off the whales, at that point, it's not going to recover. Because without the whales, you're not going to have a project. And they have anti-whale off of Libera. They don't have it on Libero, which they wanted to build in the V2. And then apparently the community said, no, don't do a V2. So Libero, those whales aren't going to care about that 90%. If they want to sell off that business, they're going to sell it. And they're not going to care. So Long Beach might be onto something in the sense that it won't survive the bear market and it won't last a long term because of the decisions they've made. And again, all these shinies they keep creating that they're never going to be, at some point you're going to piss off every population of users in the ecosystem with what you're doing. Yeah, it's brutal. That's a 10-to-1. So the wrap is a 10-to-1. So this just gets worse. You're not going to be able to, they're doing everything they can to make sure you can't get out of Libero too, as well, which is unfortunate. And then removing the smart bond means they don't want you to buy into Libero either. And they removed the bond from, they used to have a bond option on Libero. They don't want you to do that either. So they really do not want people to buy. They don't want people to buy. They just want people to mine. So they're essentially transforming it, like a lot of this is a lie. They're essentially transforming it into kind of a ghetto version of elephant money, is the best analogy I can give you, which is unfortunate because that's not going to work. Because elephant money has experience and skill behind it that these guys strongly lack. And it's not going to, they're not going to pull that off. They're not going to succeed. You know what? I can't even say elephant money. This is basically a ghetto version of drip token. That's what it is. It's a ghetto version of drip token. If you haven't looked at drip token, I encourage you to look at it, but it's a ghetto version of drip token. I say ghetto because drip token is a true pyramid scheme, whereas this one is not a true pyramid scheme, but it's like hacking together all these features of drip token as far as the mining concept and then the referral concept. And for the coverage that we were talking of doing, they wanted me to do a referral link and all that. This is a ghetto version of drip token. And for anybody who wasn't watching the other video that I did, drip token, which only has 20,000 holders, mind you, drip token peaked at over 170 some odd dollars, 180, currently trading at $10. So if drip token and has a liquidity at $13,000, which is scary. So since I see a ghetto version of drip token off Libero, I think Long Beach might be onto something that Libero probably won't be able to survive through, but it won't go away. None of them go away. They're all still there. They just don't do anything. They don't have the same volume. They don't have the same interest. And they just move on to the next shiny. And that's probably what would happen. And they made all sorts of updates to the site. Problem is that many of the updates are an acknowledgement of the failure. This 1,000 Libero, remember, this was $1 million when they first published this. Now they're saying, well, it's only going to be $4,000. I question why that's acceptable. If I'm the dev, why would I be okay with that? That's an acknowledgement of failure. Then they say a bunch of stuff that's no longer true. Increase the treasury. That's no longer true because you got rid of the bond. That was the main reason why this was, because the multi-chain farming isn't increasing because there's no, it's a bear market. Even if you were not in the bear market, it doesn't matter because most of the farming is no longer collecting the rewards that you might think it does. So the farming, for those curious, is off over here. These numbers have not increased in months, with the exception of Polygon, and that's only $7,000. Binance has actually gone down significantly. Phantom is about the same. Metis is about the same. And if you look at the graph, if you haven't seen this, I encourage you to do so. So they started doing the farming back in March, grows to a point, but then notice it's trending downward. And there's a lot lost. And if you look at each of these in kind, this one, they built the initial one that they already had it, and then they built a separate one just for Libero. Then they took money out of it and then put it over to another thing and then rebuilt off this one. So this one's never been stable. And then the Binance one is trending downward. You see what I'm saying? Like you can call out that it's stabilized, but it's not because everything's trending downward. On the Phantom side then, which is, I don't know if it's scary or funny or interesting or intriguing, but on the Phantom Libero side, they're not doing any farming at all. However, more people are jumping over there. So the Phantom Libero feels to me like it doesn't feel abandoned. It feels like it's been left alone, purposely left alone, but that's the reason why it appears to be having more success right now. Its price is in a much better position than the Binance side. People are jumping over into it. It seems to actually be working. It still has the bond apparently. And I think what's happening is they've ignored Phantom Libero. I think that's the only reason we see this stuff. They haven't given any time to it. They're ignoring it and doing the Libero side. That's the only reason it's this. And I suspect at some point they're going to jack this one up. That's my theory. Long Beach says if the team doesn't get on more exchanges, investors get pissed off who are locked in Libero Bank. Locking in Libero Bank gets rewards from the volume on the decentralized and centralized, which is true, which is why I said that missing Bitmart is going to be the problem if we don't solve those. And the whales, again, are not going to care about the 90%. They're just going to take their money and go somewhere else. That's why they're whales, if they're not getting the returns that they expect, or if they don't think that it's going to get to a point. You are correct that the promise, the statement was Now, here's the counter. Whoever it is in Telescam that made the statement that Crypto Talk Radio and Leicester don't know what the heck they're talking about, they would probably say to you, Long Beach, quote, we're on DigiFinex, not understanding that, as I showed the other day, DigiFinex has no fucking volume, which means you're not getting those rewards. So the fact that you're supposed to get rewards if there were volume, there's no volume. They would probably come back and say, in the bear period, it's always an excuse with them. So if Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what he's talking about, Leicester doesn't know what he's talking about, I challenge the community to tell me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm showing on the screen that it seems like these things aren't working. So maybe I got it wrong. I don't know. DigiFinex. Let's look and see what DigiFinex has going on. Let's see if Crypto Talk Radio and Leicester doesn't know what he's talking about. Yes, I know you don't serve Americans. I understand this. I don't care. Yes, I understand you don't serve Americans. I don't care. Let's see what DigiFinex has going on here. Oh, look at that. DigiFinex, latest price, 86 cents. Just as a reminder, on the decentralized exchanges, Libero has a fair market price. So this is given all points and on the decentralized side of $1.35-ish per token. DigiFinex says that people are trading it for only 86 cents. Do you know what that means? That means that people are trying to sell at a loss. They're not trying. They're selling at a loss. Look at the lines. This is bad. When you see these dump down type line patterns, people are trying to sell at a loss. That's what it means. If you believe in a project and you believe in the price movement, you should not see that the centralized exchanges is excessively selling at loss. If you look at the order book, people are no longer even trying to get the $20 I showed the other day. The most they're trying to get is $1.70. Before it was $20. People are on the buy side are trying to buy at no more than 85 cents off of a token whose fair market is $1.35. Could you imagine if you have a car, right, that's supposed to be sold at $13,500 brand new? I know we're in a different time, but let's say $13,500 brand new. But the most people are willing to pay you for that freaking car is just a bit of $8,000. That's the equivalent of what's happening here. People are not willing to pay what you want. That means you're not successful. Part of it's DigiFinex, but that's coming from the international side. So if the international side don't believe in it, what's going to happen? It's not going to succeed because you don't have the success, the momentum. And I argue that part of that is because of whatever it is that they're saying in Telescam, where they're hurting investor sentiment. One. Two, they're just focusing on the shinies and people aren't biting anymore. And they're seeing you're just jumping to another shiny. I'm just going to get out of this business. And people are trying to sell at a loss from their wallets. That's my theory. Now, what I don't know is why they choose to sell at a loss here as opposed to just selling on the DCEN and making more money here. I suspect it's because certain people outside the crypto bubble don't want to do decentralized exchange. All they know is the centralized. I have a wallet, I bought it, and I watch it, and if it doesn't work, I sell it and get my money out. If I'm right, that means that the devs failed them again because they assumed that the decentralized exchange, that means they're not even looking at the Libero miner. They're not looking at all this garbage. They don't care. They probably don't even know it's there. That means that all this jumping after shiny was never going to work. If I'm right, and we do see that this pattern in DigiFinex is the sentiment, the real sentiment, means I had it wrong too. I assumed that the DCEN was the true sentiment. That means this is the true sentiment of no, it's really not worth a damn. It's not worth the dollar you initially launched it at. It ain't worth nothing. And this has nothing to do with the bear period because you can ask for whatever price you want and people would choose to pay whatever price they want. People are buying. They just don't want to buy at the price you want. Most of them only want to pay 77 cents. Wow. Mr. Vaughn says, Libero devs are amateurs and they're burning money for no reason. There's a reason. There's a reason. The reason is that they jump to and they react to whatever's in front of them. Whatever they see is the current popular something. They're building something to react to it. There's a company. People might not know this. There's a company called Cognizant out there. Cognizant is a consulting firm. They're international based, and they have presences all over the world. And what they do is they go to companies and they say, what do you need? What are you trying to do? And they'll say, well, we have this financial app and it's not doing what we want it to do. And Cognizant will literally build their own equivalent of that app, and they'll sell it at a fraction of the cost to say, we just want the business. We just want the business. So we'll not burn, but they'll spend money to create our own clone of this one, and we'll do it better, and we'll sell it to you on the cheap. That's their whole marketing strategy. That's what's happening here. They see, like, again, with Titano comes out, they have this contract, it's built a certain way, it does a certain thing with APY and rebase and all this. Libero comes out shortly after, says we did the same thing, but we did it better. We fixed the issues. It's the same rebase concept, but we're going to make you money and we're going to have you retire early. And so then it gets the pumps and it's growing like crazy, gets to a penny. I did coverage on it, but then Seifu comes out. Seifu comes out and they say, well, we took Libero, we took Titano, and we rebuilt and redesigned the whole thing, and we did it better. And then they did it in more aggressive marketing. Libero didn't do aggressive marketing. It did some marketing, but nowhere near what Seifu did with the car salesman. So Seifu poached a lot of people out of Libero. Instead of fixing the fundamentals on Libero that caused people to jump over to the project, the Libero team just said, okay, well, let's create the bank to force people to stake because we want to keep that money in-house. And then we do the passives off the bank, and that enticed a few people. Then they show up with the wrap Libero, which became Libera, and they said, we're going to get our exchanges, and that's going to be the pitch. And then we're going to do more burns on Libero, because what people didn't know was that Libero didn't have a cap supply. It can mint tokens. This is the emission they're talking about. So as Libero needed to pay rewards to people in Libero tokens, it was basically minting tokens to pay people. Well, the problem is they created their own problem because they told people all to get into the bank, Libero Bank. The more people that got into the bank, if you look at the Libera Bank, not there, Libera Bank, they did the same concept here where they said, we're going to pay you in Libero rewards. Then we go to Liberator, same thing where we're going to pay you in Libero rewards. And then if I go to Libero Financial, to its bank, we're going to pay you in Libero rewards. They have tons locked in there. Everybody jumped in there. When you have everybody jumped in there and they had to pay these people the rewards, they were just minting tokens. When the bear period hit and now we no longer have the volumes, it was basically just printing money and an inflation thing. They wrapped Libera, to assume that it would manage the inflation and burn Libero supply. The problem is that doesn't work in a bear period because the volume tapered off. So that strategy was never going to work. They had to basically just stop the printing, period, and change how the banks worked. They didn't do that because they didn't want to, because they knew that people would dump out of it. So that was the problem there with this business. It's not that they're burning with no reason. They have a reason. They're reacting to every new thing that comes up. Every time there's something else in the industry, they just react and build their own clone of it. Mr. Bond says Libero airdropped coins to Titano users. There were airdrops of Libero that happened when it first launched. This is true. The problem is that the airdrops had no real, at first they had value, right? But later, if they did follow on airdrops, it wouldn't have mattered because there was so much excessive supply. It didn't do anything. So none of that really mattered. I didn't see that there was a secondary airdrop. I know the first one did. It didn't make too much of a difference because it actually helped the project because the people that they airdropped it to were already in the ecosystem. So from what I could tell, it didn't really do much of anything. If they did a second one, it didn't really matter. The Titano people were going to stay Titano no matter what. The Titano people were not going to jump ship because once you're already in something and you see it's doing what it's doing, they were going to stay diehards because they believe it's the originator, and they weren't going to jump on this one. There might have been a couple people, but most of them probably stayed over there because they saw, there's that loyalty aspect. When I did coverage on Titano's contract, or actually when they stole from that whale, that's when people jumped ship from Titano and jumped over to Seifu and Libero because a lot of people were pissed off. They stole money from the whale. Had less to do with the project and more to do with the devs. If you look at the pattern, all of these that are just churning investors, it's always about the devs. If the devs screw something up, then they jump ship to something else. The Titano, they steal the money from the whale. Everybody jump ship to these other ones. The car salesman goes, it gets covered by CoffeeZilla, ducks the smoke. People jump ship out of that one. The Libero team, they're abandoning the base Libero. People jump ship out of that one. The lock pay shows up, and I do the coverage first about the grifters, and people jump ship. Like it's churn. I guarantee you, the vast majority are probably the same group of people, because many of the other people outside of this bubble don't care about these kinds of projects. They don't care about them. They're either looking for there's three categories. You're either the FOMO crowd, meaning you're just reacting to candles, you don't care. You're the gambler, which means you're just going to gamble on risky projects regardless, or you're a fundamental type trader. The fundamental type trader would be in this, but they would not YOLO into it. The gambler would not even look at something like this because they don't see it as a gamble. They don't see it's going to make them significant amounts of money after the pre-sale. Once the pre-sale wraps up, they don't see it. There's nothing enticing for them. The FOMO would react to this. The FOMO is the only crowd that you could get to salvage this guy. You'd have to get those FOMO, but you're going to have to get green candles. To get green candles, you got to fix the problems. And they haven't fixed the problems. And what I'm told is they don't see their problems, because apparently Crypto Talk Radio in Leicester doesn't know what he's talking about. And just as a reminder, this is their own document. Their own document straight says smart bond is better than liquidity mining, but yet they remove smart bond and they're going all in on liquidity mining. They straight say mining temporarily rented, quote, temporarily rented in return for rewards, creating a perpetual expense, keyword expense, for the protocol, quickly vanishes in times of market drawdown, which of course everybody knows we're in a market drawdown. Bonding, owned by the protocol, revenue generating, better absorbed large trades in market downturns, yet they got rid of the bond. I challenge anybody in the community on their own freaking document. I challenge anybody in the community to tell me why the push to mining makes perfect sense and why the devs are on the same and Crypto Talk doesn't know what he's talking about when their own image contradicts their current strategy. Their own image says that what they're doing is wrong. Like this is their document. This is their image. They did this. I didn't do this. This is theirs. They are the ones that said mining doesn't make any sense. So if mining doesn't make any sense, and I'm saying mining doesn't make any sense based on your own document, how is it that Crypto Talk doesn't know what he's talking about when you guys yourself said mining doesn't make any sense and bonding makes sense, and then you delete mining from the site, bonding from the site? I challenge the community to tell me where it is that Crypto Talk's getting it wrong, because this is their own docs. So either they had some people shift, like they changed people and the new people don't know what the heck the old people put out, or I think it's desperation. They're just desperate, and so they're just reacting to a thing. That's my theory. All I'm saying is, if it's true that the team claims that Crypto Talk Radio does not know what he's talking about, point them to their own freaking document, and this image in particular, under Smart Bond, and ask them to explain it then. If Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what the heck he's talking about, why did you put this out? And they'll say, well, it's a different time and we're trying to navigate different, doop. That means Crypto Talk Radio is spot on, because that's exactly what he said. He said, you're changing. We just don't know why. We don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. And people are selling out because they don't agree with it. Tell me what part of that's wrong, and we'll talk it out and solve it. But the dev doesn't want the smoke. Openly told me that they refuse to get on any camera and talk it out and face the hard questions. I consider that risky. Not that they would rug, but that they would abandon potentially the project and move on to something else because they have that pattern. And that's unfortunate. I don't like to see that, because I don't like to see people that lock this in good faith getting taken like that. It's not right at all. But I can't, I'm one person, right? I would say the community's got to challenge, like as a group, everybody's got to challenge them. If it's true, they said Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what he's talking about, point them to their own document and say, then why did you do this when that's what he said is your own doc says this, and challenge him. Clearly he knows what he's talking about, but you guys are starting to be sketchy and you're doing things that contradict your past words, which means you change strategy. That's what he said. He doesn't know why. Why don't you explain it? Why don't you come on camera and explain it and talk it out with him? And if he's wrong, let's call out what's specifically wrong. Don't say that you changed your mind, because if you changed your mind, you're not changing your docs. Why aren't you changing your documents? You have garbage Git books, so you could have secretly edited this, and you can't even be damned to update your own documentation. That's how I know it's strategic. They did not sit down and create a plan for what they're trying to do now. So they're just reacting. They're just rushing stuff out the door, almost cussed. And they're not stopping to say, what do we need to do to make sure this is done smoothly? They're just reacting. They're building tools, shinies. I'm going to call that out and say that's a risk. Why are you doing that? You're leaving people behind and you're pissing people off. If you don't want investors, just tell the community, we don't want your money. That's fine. At least tell them that so that they know where you stand. But if you're telling them that you're going to take care of them, and you're telling them allegedly that Libero Bank is what we're trying to fix, I question why you deleted the bond option in the first place when your own doc said that the bond is the future and the bond is what we need to do. And don't come back and say, well, we rethought it and changed our mind. No, the truth is you actually focused on mining because you're reacting to all the mining, the trend that's going on right now with the baked beans and the elephant money and etc. That's what you're doing. And all Crypto Talk Radio has said is you need to stop reacting to every shiny. Stop and fix your fundamentals, fix your site flow, fix your information, fix your documentation so that we can get more confidence back in the project and regain the people that have been taken away from you. That's all he said. I challenge you to tell me what part of that's wrong. And ideally, I want the smoke. Come on the show and talk to me about it and we can chat it out. He won't. That's cool. I can't do it alone, folks. I need the community to openly get them back on track now. I've done everything I can do. They made their stance clear with that. If that statement was made in Telescam, that's clear. And then the questions that they refused to ask and answer, rather, that I asked, which is, I need to understand why you're not focusing on Libero anymore. I need to understand why you're not fixing the site, and are you willing to fix the site and fix the site flow? The community wants to know why the dev refuses to show his face. And I need you to answer this question about the bond and why you're moving away from it when your own documentation says that it's the future. We need to understand the why. And the moment I sent those questions via email, because the dev refused to get on video, all of a sudden, allegedly, in Telescam, it's announced that Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what he's talking about, and you guys should stop following his channel because he doesn't understand that whatever it is that they're doing. So I need the community's help. If it's true that I don't know what I'm talking about, point it out. Point out what I got wrong. Point out what you disagree with. Point out where I said anything that contradicts what you see yourself. If there's something that you see that's different than what I see, point it out. Let's chat it out. Chances are you see the same thing I'm seeing. And what we lack is the why. We don't know why. That's a risk. That's all I said. Yep. Mr. Vaughn refers to people locked in the bank. I wouldn't feel sorry for them because, again, they are getting the passives. The passives do work. You are getting paid passives. It's just that it's significantly less passives than what was initially presented, but it is still paying passive rewards, as all theirs do. All of theirs will still pay you long after if they abandon it, they'll still pay. So that at least is still the truth. So you are still getting the passives. It's just that the amount of passives is way down from what it's supposed to be, significantly down. We're not even talking like minor dollars or double. No. In most cases, certain people might have locked in to the point that they should be getting like $100 a day if this were done correctly. Melody and Whisper wants to know if the new stuff was helping Libero, is it a pyramid Ponzi? By definition, if Libera was actually benefiting Libero, like I'm talking direct benefit, 100%, the volume of this one, Libero immediately has a direct correlation benefit, then it would qualify as a Ponzi if they didn't do anything on Libero separate from Libera. So basically, if we have Libera and you do a staking and you do the benefit rewards and you do all these distributions on Libera, and that's all you do to fix Libero, then yes, it qualifies as a Ponzi. Where it would not be a Ponzi is if on Libero you're also doing development efforts and then it benefits back up the stream, which it should do, because Libero is what makes Libera happen. See, the way this is supposed to work is that Libero should be helping Libera because Libera is wrapped Libero. The way they built it, there's still that wrapping, but because Libero is so far low, The benefit of Libera isn't realized. You can't get any benefit out of it because what's in it is worthless, right? It'd be like I gave you a bag of 100 pennies, right? The bag feels heavy, feels good and all that, but it's only $1. And maybe you didn't know that it's only 100 pennies till you got home and you opened it. You're like, well, I just got ripped off. Well, no, because if I said, yeah, I'm going to give you 100 of these whatevers, it's 100 to you. It sounds good, but it's heavy, right? But it's only pennies. It has no value. That's what we're dealing with here. Is you're getting a bag of essentially a worthless asset, when the promise was that this asset was going to appreciate, as in go up in value, which means that same bag won't get any heavier necessarily, but more value is going to be added to it over time. That didn't happen. So if they got it to where Libero independently goes up by whatever they do, which I said, bond, number one, the bank, I think you redo the bank and fix it. All the rewards should go back into the bank automatically and force staking and do things to fix Libero. And that then gives the promise that the Libera increases in value independently. Then it's no longer a Ponzi. It's just basically this synergistic relationship. It would be a Ponzi if they said, nope, everything Libera right now, the miner, everything else directly spikes the price of Libero, and that's all they did, then it would be a Ponzi by definition, yes. Because these people's money in Libera is being used to enrich these people over here who are the originals, the OGs. When you take new and you enrich the OGs with the new only, that is a Ponzi scheme by definition. Since, unfortunately for them, the benefit isn't happening, it cannot be a Ponzi scheme by definition because the OGs are not getting any real benefit out of it. Now, if it turned out that somebody did analysis and they found out that the Libera miner and all these other things, that money was being sent to replace the emissions, so basically it was being used to pay the benefits for the Libera holders, then yes, it's a Ponzi by definition. But that's not the case because the benefits were still happening even when Libera didn't exist. Definitely not a pyramid by core definition because one doesn't break because the other one stops. So pyramid is whatever's at the top has to continue, and then whatever's beneath has to keep growing to keep whatever's at the top going. That's not in place here. Like it doesn't matter if you do the referrals or not, it just increases how much you get, but it doesn't stop it if you don't do referrals. Getting Libera, you can buy Libera directly off the exchange and you can buy it at a discount, right? And so you could stack Libera on the cheap from DigiFinex if you're international. Well, the fact that you can buy it on the cheap means that there's no direct dependency on the decentralized exchange. So you could just buy it. You could theoretically right now, in international, buy it on the cheap, and I think this is happening. Buy it on the cheap from DigiFinex, come back to Decen and sell it at profit. It can't be a pyramid because nothing's stopping you from doing that. It's right now the market wants you to do that because people's sentiment is down. If it was a true pyramid, you wouldn't be able to do that. It would be the price has to be what it is, and then everything underneath it's forcing the price up because more stuff's happening. That's not happening. The inverse is happening. Things are down, and they keep going down, and they're not going back up because there's nothing forcing it to go up. That really bothers me they did that. That really bothers me they did that. And this hasn't been updated in ages. This goes to my point. This staking, which flags new, but these are the old stakes. This is when they went live. Shortly after they went live. So shortly after they went live, they did a partnership with NightSwap. That hasn't been the case since March. They did a partnership with BabySwap. Hasn't been the case since March. Pretty sure it was March. And then they did the MVC and the Epic Hero where you could stake those in Thorium and get more Libero. That hasn't been the case since they went live. And they only did it for 30 days. None of this has been updated, even though it says staking new. And they're not even really using this at all. They're not updating it. That's how I know that they're just going to shinies. They're only focusing on what they're focusing on, which in this case is these two, Liberator and Libera Minor. They don't care about any of the rest of it at all. They're just reacting to different points. And the price is being harmed as a result because people are just selling Libero because if you can, there's no reason to hold it anymore because they haven't created a compelling reason to hold it. And the profits are down because they're barely making any profit in the treasury. And by profit, I mean the excess of money going into the treasury above and beyond what it takes to support the eco. So profit is only $400,000, even though the treasury balance is over 4 million, 4.5 million. So that's bad because it means your expense is so much significantly higher than it should be. Like your profit should be much higher than this. You should be making a lot more going into the treasury. The reason it's probably this low is because, again, the bond was part of what put that in place. The bond was actually adding to the treasury. So they got rid of the bonding, which makes no sense. Then they were doing farming, but the farming hasn't increased because we're in a bear period. So although they're making more, their expenses are also significant. So I guess the summary of what I'm saying is it's almost, I don't know if anybody's went to college and they talked about misleading charts and graphs, but it's misleading. They show numbers that make it seem like everything's good. And from a general numbers perspective, it is, but I'm saying it's not where it should be. So if you're making, think of this as salary at a job, right? If you had a job that paid you $4 million, right, every single year, $4 million is your salary. You make 4.5 million. Profit is basically how much I have left. In what I'm seeing on the graph, it's how much they got left after expenses and anything. In traditional finance, that's what it means. My profit was this. I might have made this, but my profit was this after expenses. If that's what this is saying, that's not good because it means that their expenses are starting to outweigh how much money they're getting off the farming and how much they're getting off the sustainable. So if the sustainable isn't sustaining, that means at some point it's going to go down. And I suspect that what they're trying to do is use Libera activities to shore this up, and that's why there's an urgency to go this direction. Because if I go to Libera side, they don't appear to have separate farming on the Libera side, as far as I can tell. So that might be driving their urgency. Could be that they're just saying, we got a problem here with the finances on the Libero side because of the decisions we made. And so we're going to just use this and try to keep pitching this and see if we can generate enough to replenish or supplant because we're not able to do the farming anymore. And this goes to a point somebody else said in the financial space, which was they didn't believe that yield farming was sustainable long term. I disagree with it. I think it can be, not in a bear period as your only source of income. There has to be multiple separate things that you do. So you have multiple separate ways to insulate. You can't just build based on a bull run. That's what they're all doing. They're building based on the assumption of a bull because it's like this FOMO attack. You can't just build based on it. You've got to have multiple sustainable sources. Passive can work if you have sustainability in the project, and the sustainability has to come from multiple areas. It's the reason Seifu crapped, because Seifu only really had one avenue for it to sustain itself. And then after a point, it basically was like bleeding a turnip. It couldn't sustain, and the rebase can't solve everything. Rebase doesn't create value. Rebase just rebases. So I think a lot of them, arguably all of them, made the assumption under a bull period. If you do that, you can't, the test really is what's going to happen in a bear period. And that tells you what they built is or isn't resilient. Can it survive in multiple periods? I go back to Everrise because Everrise is probably the best example of a project that has been resilient in bear or bull periods regardless. Over the last 24 hours, they were down 0.5%. Their graph doesn't look amazing, but when you zoom out of it and you realize they peaked at 2 zeros and 1, and they're only down to 3 zeros and 5, even regardless of the bear period, even regardless of dip, their dip wasn't as significant as everybody else's. They managed to stabilize and be sustainable because of the way they built their ecosystem. They're on every single network at this point, so they have multiple bridge capability. That's what Libero jacked up. So they can interchange between the different networks. They don't need to farm. They've got presence on all of them so they can interplay between them. They are building utilities across the ecosystem. They built the EverSwap. They're getting more tokens on board. The tokens have to pay. There's a fee that goes with the transactions. That helps the ecosystem. They're getting more on EverOwn, EverLock, EverMigrate. They're collecting off all this. They're becoming a central point, so it helps stabilize their project better than all the rest of them. That's what Libero failed to do, is figure out how to stabilize what you're doing. They just built based on the bull run. Cool, but then what do you do when the bull run goes away? Chris Murillo, thanks for the insight. Keep with the opinion. And for everybody, I guess, there probably won't be very many more opinions on Libero Financial, the ecosystem, because if it's true that the Telescam believes that Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what he's talking about, there's no reason to cover it anymore, because I certainly don't want to mislead people. However, if it's true that I do know what I'm talking about and whatever dev, admin, or otherwise just got triggered, I would ask the community to simply check them at the door. But if it's true that they said that I don't know what I'm talking about, there's no reason to do any further coverage. That's why I wanted to do this one as kind of that swan song. Say, this is what it is. That's what I see. I'm either right or wrong. And if I'm right, well, time will tell. But if I'm wrong, tell me. Check me at the door. And tell me specifically what I'm wrong about. I'm showing graphs that seem to correlate what I'm saying to be the truth. And I'm showing another project that seemed to manage to sustain so that there is no bull period excuse. But I appreciate you, Chris. If you like the coverage that we do, it's always based on what we see. And we call it like we see it. And if the devs don't like it or whatever, because we know that all of them do that. The vast majority of them do that. They just get triggered. And that's a beef we have in cryptocurrency. And we don't support projects where they have triggered or salty or whatever admins or devs. We have stuff locked in the banks. That's fine. At some point, I might even do the 90%, primarily because if I were to make that decision, it would benefit whoever's still holding at least a little bit. It would get me away from enriching incompetence, because I will never enrich incompetence. That's a decision I've really thought about making. I haven't committed to whether I'll do that or not. It depends on what I hear back on this email exchange, or if the devs truly think Crypto Talk doesn't know what he's talking about, then I'll just pull the trigger and do the thing there. Chris says that Leo Dev kicked out from the Telescam, asking about chasing shiny and sustainability. So it probably was Leo Dev that made the statement about Crypto Talk Radio. I suspect that it was him, because Tara, who I guess is an admin, she seemed to be pretty amenable. She seemed to want to get us in touch with whatever their COO is, seemed to want to get everything working. She seemed like she was really energized to get something going. And I got the sense she was really energized. I haven't heard back from Crypto Addict in a while. He seemed like he was trying to get things moving. And I think all points now lead to this Leo Dev dude. And I have a real problem with him not wanting to smoke and showing his face. I don't care if he doesn't show his face to me. He should show his face to somebody. I'll tell you what, though. If he continues the way he's doing, he's going to end up on a CoffeeZilla episode. He doesn't want that. And I'm trying to help him avoid that, because we saw what it did for Seifu. So, community, let him know. And yeah, it could risk you getting banned from the Telescam, but let him know, man. Car Salesman got put on CoffeeZilla. That project is on the way down and close to running on empty after CoffeeZilla did his coverage. And of course, I had warned people up front, but CoffeeZilla took it to the ringer. He took it to the extreme. So let him know that's not Leo Dev. That's not what he wants. He don't want this. He don't want it, because if he's expecting Libera to recoup everything, and he doesn't take this smoke, and CoffeeZilla gets in there for if he chooses to, He don't want that smoke. I'm just saying. One other thing for those that don't know, that may not have realized, and again, if you can, challenge them on this one, because this is their own document, by the way. One other thing, real quick, if you didn't know, and this is the other reason why I've said I probably won't need to cover, I probably won't be able to cover them anymore. CERTIC kicked out Seifu. They completely kicked him out, and they said, we're not covering this project. It's too risky. We're having some issues. CERTIC, if you notice, when they did the CERTIC audit way back yonder, they had one of the highest scores. It actually was in the 90s, way back yonder, and then it's been tapering off ever since. Down, 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 down for the vast majority of May. This is not necessarily there's anything wrong with the contract. It's because of the price decline, because Seifu takes into consideration investor sentiment in what they look at. Because if they see a bunch of people are dumping out of the project, it creates a security risk because you have the staking and people are losing money because they're locked in there, and then people are dumping out and they're not solving it and they're not fixing it. And in a lot of what they called out, there were not responses that were satisfactory to the CERTIC side. So the other problem I've got here that I'm trying to get them to solve, Mr. Leo Dev, your CERTIC score is starting to go in the crapper. And if you don't want to end up like Seifu, man, getting kicked off the thing, I strongly suggest you get off that. Somebody got to get him off the horse, because it's not going to end well. Because again, there's nothing wrong with the code necessarily. It's that they've put themselves into this problem by ignoring smoke and by just going forward and chasing shinies, which creates this type of risk because sentiment is harmed. When sentiment is harmed, that's why I keep telling these projects, you've got to keep your investors happy. They are your boss. If you don't keep them happy and they're excessively selling off, everybody's looking at that. Sentiment matters. And so they're not going to buy in net new, because anybody that's locked in stake, they're losing money like crazy. And then you do get to a risk of a Ponzi, because if you build this to try to solve that, now you've created a Ponzi scheme. Now it's even worse. You're just making it worse, all because they're refusing to just solve the core token when they can. They can, of all of them, Libero they can solve. It's not renounced. They can fix these issues. They choose not to. And the fact that they did the DAO, initially tried to do a V2, apparently got flack and backed off the V2, tells me now they're frustrated. They don't like that the community's telling these things. And the reaction from kicking out and banning, you're not the only one, Chris. I heard a lot of people say they got banned from Telescam for asking core fundamental questions. That's not the way it should be, because that's how Seifu is. And one thing Libero said at one point was they weren't going to be like those other projects. They weren't going to be toxic like that. And that's what they're doing because of a triggered dev. Triggered devs tank projects. You can have the best project in the world. Triggered devs and admins tank a project every frickin' time. This one I assumed was different because it's like, okay, you got something here. It got high. All we got to do is get back up there. And why don't you want the feedback? And, I don't know. So let them know that too. I don't want you to get banned from Telescam. You wouldn't lose much, but I'm saying I wouldn't want you to be missing out on information because they don't update their site. But community should let them know your CERTIC score is about to be in the crapper. If you're cool with that, because you advertise on your site that you're audited by CERTIC. So if you have new people come to the site and they say, ooh, audited by CERTIC, and then they go to CERTIC and they say, okay, well, that means it's crap and it's going down. What do you think is going to happen? But again, maybe Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what he's talking about. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is obvious. This is common sense. This is to outside the crypto bubble. This is common sense. You're advertising a thing and you're sending people to a site that basically says your contract's crap. What do you think's going to happen? They're going to avoid your project. Then they're going to say, I see this Titano and it's green. Let's just go on over there. Deep. If that's what you want to do, great. Tell the community we don't give a damn about you. Because that's what you're telling them. You don't care about them because you're not fixing these problems. And if Crypto Talk Radio is wrong, community, tell me. Tell me where I'm getting it wrong. Tell me where I'm off. Tell me where I'm not accurate. Tell me what's not common sense. Tell me what's not logical here. What am I missing? Please, by all means, I want that smoke. What am I missing here in this whole fiasco? It's nuts. I've had enough of this business. I truly have had enough of this business. If that's what they want, that's cool. I don't know why they would want that, but it is what it is. That's cool. All right, I'm going to dial out. Like I said, chances are, and it wouldn't surprise me if Leo Dev said the statement that was presented from Mint. It wouldn't surprise me. And chances are that means I don't need to cover it anymore, because I've already said what needed to be said. And at this point, if they're not, if it's Leo Dev and he's not willing to come off the horse, there's no reason to continue conversation. If I hear back from Terra or Crypto Addict, I'll let them know. I'm told the dev straight doesn't have any confidence in what we're doing. So if that's true, no problem. You'd have to come on the show. If the COO still wants to do it, I would challenge that person to say, what is your function then? If Leo Dev can make those arbitrary decisions and you're creating a toxic community because you're just banning and deleting people and pissing off investors and you're cool with that, I question what is your role, sir, of COO, because Chief Operating Officer means that dev should not be acting without your approval. If the dev is acting without your approval, I question why the dev's still involved. That's if I hear back from Terra. I'll obviously let people know, probably via Twitter, if I do hear back from Terra saying that they want to move forward with something, even if it's just the initial video. I suspect I won't hear back because Terra was pretty quick until this statement was made in Telescam, and I haven't heard back from her since. So I'm assuming Leo Dev put the ban hammer in there and told Terra, don't bother commenting anymore. And that's fine. That's fine. That means that I won't be able to help them. And I apologize to anybody who's in the eco. So I said everything was always apparently and allegedly and hopefully, supposedly, because I don't give commits unless I'm sure. And in that, I was never sure until they signed on an agreement. I don't know, and we tried, but I know the community tried hard to get them to talk to me. And apparently they don't want that smoke because I'm asking questions they don't want to handle. And they don't want to fix it. They're just reacting to shinies. And I don't know when these projects learn a lesson. When you do that, why that's a problem and why it's not sustainable. I don't know what it'll take to get them back on track. I don't know what it'll take to get them to reset. And I don't know what the future holds. None of this do I know. It's very well possible that they do something magical and mystical at some point that fixes everything. I don't see it, but it's possible, certainly possible. As it stands, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have any additional insight into the future of the ecosystem. My theory, they create some other token outside of it and go to that at some point, probably in Q3 or Q4. That's my theory. And my theory is that it'll be based on some other shiny that's currently new out there. And they'll just start jumping over to that one. And the Libero will still be there, but they won't focus any development efforts on it any future. It'll just be sitting out there, kind of not abandoned, but essentially abandoned. That's my theory. If anybody thinks of anything else or anything else comes up that I'm not aware of, or anybody's not banned from the Telescam and they come across any comments in the Telescam that they'd like to share, please do leave them in the comments. Down below, I'll catch them when I look at it. CryptoTalkRadio.net and contact if you want to send us anything separately and don't want it on YouTube. That's fine too. And again, I apologize. I tried so hard, Akon. I tried to get in there to help. They don't want the help. That's not what they want. They want shill and they want shiny, and I can't offer either one of those. So hold the line, because if you're in the bank, you have no choice. I mean, you could sell 90, but I wouldn't recommend you do it. I probably will at some point. I probably will just go ahead and sell the 90% and lose the 90% because it's whatever, because I didn't have significant in there in the first, and I don't want to enrich incompetence. I don't want to enrich arrogance. I don't. At some point, I'll probably just go ahead and pull the trigger on that. I don't know when. I probably will still just do it for Libero Bank at minimum, because there's really no reason to leave that in there. Libero, I got to think about, and then I'll make a decision. And then at least if I choose to cash that out and eat the 90, it'll help people that are still in the ecosystem recoup at least some of the money, because it'll be redistributed through the rewards. So that's all I can really do to kind of help folks. Thank you. And once again, I apologize. Hopefully things get better for Libero. And I'm not optimistic, but I never say never.